Director Burnworth, Director Goodsell,
Here.
Director McGart, Director Proctor, Director Berker,
Here.
Director Valdez,
Here.
Director Garcia.
Here.
And please stand for the pledge. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We haven't received any.
So we will consider approval of the agenda. In case of an emergency, items may be added to the agenda by a majority vote of the Board of Directors. An emergency is defined as a work stoppage, crippling disaster, or other activity that severely imperils public health, safety, or both. Items on the agenda may be taken out of sequential order as their priority is determined by the Board of Directors. The Board may take action on any item appearing on the agenda. So, do I have a motion to approve the agenda as presented? Do we have any changes or reorganization?
I'll make the motion to approve.
Second. Okay, it's been moved by Garcia, seconded by Berker. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, that brings us to our public comment. At this time, the board will have comments on any agenda item. If any person wishes to be heard, he or she shall stand, address the president or vice president in this case, identify yourself and state the subject for comment. Time limit for each speaker is 3 minutes individually per item to address the board. Individuals who wish to speak on multiple items will be allowed 4 minutes in total. A total of 15 minutes shall be allocated for each item. For all members of the public, the board may find it necessary to limit the total time allowable for all public comment on items not appearing on the agenda at any one meeting to 1 hour. You did a great job. Nope, you got that. Are there any public comments? Seeing none, let the record reflect that President Burma is present and will continue the rest of the meeting. Thank you.
At time we'll go on to the consent calendar, which shall be acted on separately, immediately following approval of the remaining items on the consent calendar. Do you have a motion?
I move to approve. A second.
There's a motion by Goodsell and a second by Berker. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. And item A, board comments. Do we have any reports on meetings and events attended by directors?
Well, I guess qualified for the meeting, Senator Steve Padilla was given a tour of our Pioneer location, and Miss Carol and Carly did a fantastic job of leading the tour and answering all the questions, and showed me how to get from floor 2 to floor 1. And it was a good time, and I thought you guys did a really good job representing the hospital.
I second that. You guys did a great job. Thank you. All right. And no more. Move on to item 9, discussion and consideration of possible action to approve the medical staff report recommendations for medical executive committee. Sorry?
Dr. Endahar is not here. Who usually presents on this?
Dr. Endahar has the lights and then we see.
Okay.
Yeah, so there was just a discussion about, from each department, they had like meetings, and they discussed the policies, they discussed, credentialing, and on that page you will find the doctors that they would recommend to have initial appointment, pre-appointment. Carol gave her transfer list. Charlie Loper did a financial report, and Chris also reported as well. And some of the departments did not have meetings, about it.
All right, do you have a motion to approve the medical staff report?
I'll make the motion to approve.
I have a motion by Kirsty and a second by Kinsella. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Moving on to item E, appoint board members to Pioneers Memorial Hospital Public Facilities Corporation.
Yes, I'll take that one. So, back in May of 1980, Pioneers Memorial Hospital Public Facilities Corporation was established. It's a nonprofit 501c3 public benefit nonprofit corporation. It's organized under the California Nonprofit Benefit Corporation Law for public or charitable purposes. The specific purposes of this nonprofit are to render assistance to the Pioneers Memorial Hospital District by acquiring, leasing, financing, refinancing, constructing, improving, equipping, and furnishing public hospital and other healthcare buildings and facilities of the district and surrounding areas, along with a couple other sort of promotion of common good and general welfare of the district public. They have a couple other powers to lease and convey and finance, again, property. And this, from what I can glean from the establishing documents, are to have a nonprofit formed for the benefit of the district to assist in purchasing of land, facilities, buildings, maybe equipment, because there are certain tax benefits to having nonprofits do it as opposed to the district, or sometimes both sides of the house, purchaser and seller. So the bylaws of the Pioneers Memorial Hospital PFC, Public Facilities Corporation, say that these bylaws need to be updated. But the bylaws establish there's no members, and that the directors, so there's supposed to be 5 directors of the nonprofit board, and the 5 directors shall be designated by the majority vote of the governing body of the district, and each director holds a term for 1 year, or until the designation by the governing body of the district of a successor, or until death, removal, or resignation. So, no person shall be eligible to serve as a director except someone who's been approved and designated as a director by resolution of the governing board of the district. So that's the way you control the PFC, is you appoint the folks that sit on the PFC board, and then they make the decisions for the nonprofit. So there are 4 current directors. There's an open seat. But Robert Trim is the president, Robert Presley is the vice president, Karen Smith is the secretary, and Steve Dahm is the other board director. So at this point, there's been some activity where the PFC has come up because of the surgical center, which was purchased last December or October, depending on how you read the purchase agreement with real property. But Pioneers also entered into a stock purchase agreement for the ambulatory surgical center, which at some point, I think probably, I know this is on the line, at some point we'll have a probably presentation to the board about what's going on there. But it's an ASC, ambulatory surgical center, which you now own a stake in, you own part of. And the building is something that Pioneer Memorial Hospital District owns too. So IVHD owns it. We're in escrow right now, and it's in the inspection stage because of the real property transfer. It hasn't closed yet. So our office is handling the inspection. They're in the inspection period right now. They've got surveys and stuff. And it's a building. If you're not familiar, it's a building with 4 tenants, right? And then a coffee cart in the parking lot.
What's the location?
The weight shake smoothie?
Yeah.
That's part of the land.
Oh, Dr. Roma's office?
Yes.
Okay.
So, for organizational purposes, we just need I recommend we reappoint the folks, even though they didn't lose their board seats by the dissolution. It's more like the charitable purposes of the nonprofit were absorbed by IVHD. But there is an open seat, and I do recommend, unless there's an objection that we're aware of, which I don't think we are aware of any objections, reappointing these four in their respective positions and then appointing someone to serve on that board of directors, either from this board or someone else in the community. But let me make sure what I was saying.
Does it need to be the board of directors?
No.
Or is this just like?
It
District.
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't have to be a board member. It's not precluded from being a board member. It just has to be someone that the board agrees to vote in. Let me see. There's like one organizational meeting that happens a year, it looks like, so it's pretty low maintenance in terms of participation and involvement. And again, I think that up until this ASC purchase last fall, this hadn't been utilized in many years. Yeah.
Which is the one we done in the fall.
It's just like a paper nonprofit, and it's there, and it's available for the district to the extent it makes sense to have a nonprofit on stuff. But it's separate from like the foundation, for example, which runs their stuff and it gives stuff like money to the hospital. But we do need to, appoint a fifth director. So we just wanted to introduce this at the board meeting now, and we can bring it back if you want to have an opportunity to think about it and talk about it. Or you could, appoint an ad hoc of 2 of you or 3 of you to make a recommendation to the board and bring it back in terms of a person. Again, this is pretty low maintenance. It's not a ton of decision points, but it is something that should be done so that we can have a full board. And then one thing we're going to have to broach with the nonprofit is just an update of their bylaws and articles of incorporation to reflect IVHD.
But then also probably scope, right? Because right now it's PH oriented, you want to know the district.
Right, exactly. Yeah, just making sure that it's, right now, like the principal office of the nonprofit is the district's 201 West Legion Raleigh address, and that can remain, obviously, but when we change the benefit of the district, it'll, instead of being the benefit of the Pioneer Memorial Hospital District, it'll be the IVHD. So this will naturally sort of increase so the whole county is here. I'm happy to answer any questions. We just wanted to introduce it to make sure we either appoint someone at this meeting or bring it back to another meeting. We wanted to leave it sort of flexible so that we can check the box.
Is anybody interested in doing
It's on you, James.
on me?
All you do, you're all
Our director did some.
And these meetings, unlike board meetings, don't, they're not public meetings. Nonprofits don't have to comply with the Brown Act. So sometimes these meetings happen, I don't think there's
Usually do it in the middle of the day, an hour.
yeah, or,
If
votes
it's
can
once-
happen over
well,
email,
nobody else
as long as this says that, which I don't know if this says.
If it's once a year,
Yeah, it's once a year. It's an
Yeah.
update on financials and operations meeting, they happen usually.
everybody's on board with that.
I nominate
People that
James.
Do a 1-year
I
meeting.
second it. James, you got it. We have to say.
I have a
yeah, yes.
motion by,
Goodsell and a second by Burker.
all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? You're right, Mr. Garcia.
Thank you for your support, everybody.
That's what I was for.
So we'll get you in touch with the other folks on the PFC board and start just making sure we line that up.
We don't need a motion to accept them, right?
No, I mean, I don't think we need to reappoint
Okay.
them, frankly.
Okay.
You could, but I don't,
No, I think it's.
I think it's fine. I am curious when their term expires. because I don't have that information, it just says 2024. So, but the bylaws do say, 1 year term, but basically you stay in your term unless someone else is reappointed to replace you. So it's evergreen. Right. So I think it's fine. I do think that what we'll have to do is just make sure to update the bylaws in articles, which we can do and bring to that board for consideration sometime this year. Okay, that's that item.
Awesome. Thank you. So then we'll move on to item C, authorize the JGC government relations incorporated scope of work proposal.
I don't know. Carly, do you have background on this? I don't have background on this one.
There's a
Staff report, yeah.
I would say the staff report, it says it's for a state lobbying firm.
for a bill.
To lobby.
I'm
Let's
sorry.
say plug in as well.
Yeah, to just have a lobbyist for the district. The retainer's $5,000 a month. Pretty much if, as there's bills and all the changes that are going on in Sacramento, if we want to have somebody testify on our behalf, they have to be registered with the lobbying, so you have to have a schedule. You have to have a contract with them. The contract is public, so they enter into a lobbying database, so everybody can then see, who the lobbying is for. Lobbyists have to have an active license, etc. So this is what that scope of work is for. Say, for example, if we had to go to Sacramento again like we did last year, we went, without a lobbyist, right? This time, the lobbyist would help, set up your meetings, do all the scheduling stuff instead of going, kind of like we did on our, with all the crazy changes going on in Sacramento at the Fed level. I think it's really important to have lobbyists in this work, so
$5,000 a month.
that's pretty cheap.
Is this going to be like a permanent contract, or is it going to be just temporary?
It doesn't say in here. My guess it would be for a year.
I haven't seen the contract. This is just the scope of work. So we could put
A year.
an end time, a cap of whatever you want on it.
It's probably a good idea to have a person there on our behalf right now, especially while we're still making sure that kind of the bill is still kind of settling in Sacramento, I guess you'd say, to maybe play a little defense or offense on any challenges or any changes that we're not aware of, things that may be on the move that we're not aware of. Kind of our person on the ground over there. He was on our tour with us, real nice guy. I think he's like second generation lobbyist. He's got a pretty extensive background, a very intelligent person as well.
I'd say 5,000. The previous lobbyist that Pioneers Memorial had was $7,500 a year.
I think it's a protective measure.
Sorry, Chris wants to talk. He's
Is there a way we can see who's online besides just a bite?
there we go. Here comes Chris.
All right, thank you. Yeah, I was going to say something before about James getting that nomination after he did that to Noel last one. So.
Oh, did you want to do it, Chris? I
that-
didn't mean to step on your.
What was that?
I didn't mean to get in the way of your ambitions. Were you interested in?
That's true.
Oh, no. But just on this one too, I just wanted to comment on it. We've got a couple of things that we're working on in the legislature right now. And then next year, in particular, we're hoping another one will come through for us that's going to be pretty big. So this one, you're right, Adriana, it's just the scope of work. We can put the time frame on there that we want as far as when we actually put the agreement in place and find out exactly how long we want to do that for and have, outs and stuff like that in our contract. But there's a lot of work that needs to be done there. And relying on CHA and ACHD is helpful, but one of the things that we find with doing something like that is they're going to be, obviously they have a greater good, so to speak, that they have to kind of, do their lobbying for. So even though it might be good for us, if it's not good for some of the others, they may not push through what we want to do. And so this just gives us an opportunity at this point in time with all the stuff going on to get some help with that and have somebody that will report regularly to us, and we can get that information that we want to get in front of the assembly members and the senators, and so we can look.
So we need to, somebody needs to be muted.
It's Chris.
No, I think it's just Chris's
Oh, it's the
background. He's in the
background.
airport. He just landed. Yeah. He just landed, I think, in LAX. Yeah.
Is it, what's customary? I mean, personally, I'd like to see it be reviewed annually, but
Yeah, I would like to see like a contract with the terms and everything before we make a decision.
Do you want to do it and then pending a legal review of the contract?
Yeah, what I can do, what a lot of our consultant agreements to date have looked like is that they're the same terms as, for example, BRG and other consultants that the board has brought on. And then we tell, in the contract, we say, like, the stuff that's different from contract to contract is the time frame or the cap. And then we attach this scope of work as the scope of work that they're obligated to do in exchange for the compensation. And then we have stuff like insurance, stuff like, a bunch of kind of standard provisions. But this would be the scope of work that is attached to the contract that says what this person is obligated to do in exchange for the $5,000 a month. So you can ask for an expanded scope if you want more specific deliverables, or if this is enough, because I've seen less, frankly, in terms of scopes for lobbyists. Then you can approve this scope of work and direct me to execute a professional services agreement or something like an independent contractor agreement with this lobbyist consistent with this scope of work. I can bring it back and you can approve it. It's whatever you're comfortable with. The thing is, it's open-ended here. So it is $5,000 per month. It would start upon execution, and you would say either effective today, or you want the start date to be April 1. That's the kind of stuff that you can just give me instruction on, and we'll put it in the contract. Or I can bring it back, whatever you want.
And in the motion, we can stipulate to when you would be
Yeah.
willing to do a 1 year.
Yeah,
So we
that
kind
way
of set
it's
the
like-
contract terms.
Exactly.
We set the terms on the contract, so it would be our contract with
Yeah.
them. And he would just give this scope of work that he would say he would do, and then we could look over that and say, we want this also.
Yeah.
And you can do that too.
Yeah, you set basically the essential terms, or terms that you think are essential, and you guys can decide what you think that is. It's like cap on money, cap on time. I want to make sure he talks to this senator, or whatever you think is appropriate. Put that into the contract, and then all the other like fine print is stuff that I'll handle. So you can just say, and subject to legal counsel's discretion, because sometimes folks push back on stuff like indemnity, and then I either talk to Chris or I just say, no, we're doing this, and then they almost always say, okay.
Yeah, and also too, I think that maybe we should also, in our terms, but when he needs to report back to us, like once a month.
Sure.
or
I think it's in
once
here.
2 weeks.
It's in the scope of work.
It's in the scope of work.
You got it?
So I think that probably it's best just to move it, because,
yeah, just
If we
those
would
provide
keep waiting.
regular updates.
yeah.
So do you want to change regular to like monthly? I mean, stick them into a board meeting, or he can also provide updates to Chris, and then Chris can provide updates to the board through his CEO report.
I mean, with the lobbyists, there's going to be times they're not in session, right?
Right.
And so there's going to be times you have a ton of updates and the things, and there's going to be times that there's nothing.
Yeah.
And so I think regular kind of makes it, but obviously, like, if he goes MIA and we're getting no updates,
Yeah.
you can request, like,
Something we don't predict.
you can request like a board presentation. Usually, like when our lobbyists in Imperial, we have our federal ones and our state ones, they'll come and do a full legislative update at least once a year. And just, these are the laws that are coming in place. They really look for direction on, specific issues that, you need to be lobbying for. So,
And with something like this, which would typically be through something like an independent contractor agreement, the termination provisions are very robust in our agreement. So it's basically to terminate anytime. It's not like you have to give 60 days notice or, it's like you can terminate, I think it's either 10 days or any time under the IC agreement that we've been using. So that if you're unsatisfied, you could just say, we'll just terminate that. And then you have to pay, for the value of the services that they rendered up to the termination date, but then you can just cut them off. So you're not locking yourself into like a 2-year deal for sure.
And with the $5,000 retainer, I
it's
mean,
under, yeah, it's
that,
under,
it's per month, but recognizing that lobbyists have seasons where they're off season, and even though they're off season, there's not a session, there's still parties and events going on to schmooze, so to speak. Is it $5,000 a month and that's it, or when they're in session and maybe something's hot and heavy,
every
we're
month.
gonna get more charges?
You would get, it would be $5,000 a month for the value of their work.
Yeah.
The only thing I could see as adding to the 5K is if this contractor, if this lobbyist is insisting on certain costs being covered, which I don't see in the scope of work, but that's something that usually we talk
In
about.
the contract. 'Cause
Yeah.
I know they do a lot of parties and events and things that
They're not
cost
gonna charge,
money.
they're not gonna charge over that.
Yeah.
They're-
And
you
they
would
do
think
cost
like,
it out though, because my adopted daughter is actually a lobbyist in Arizona, and they do cost it out. When they take people to dinner, they cost it out. So
yeah.
I'm assuming they're not gonna cost it out, so it's gonna be the flat 5,000.
So what we can do is, you can authorize, if you want, the flat 5,000, and then I send the contractor's agreement, and then if they're like, oh no, when I take someone to dinner to lobby for IVHD, I'm gonna pass that bill through to you, and then I say, no you're not, because the board didn't authorize that, and if you want that, if that's important to you, contractor, you gotta bring it back for ratification, and the board has to approve it.
I mean,
So-
like $5,000, I would say $5,000 a month for this area because it has like tons of clients that people come in. If you go to dinner with a legislator and you're a lobbyist, you're not talking about just IVHD. You're talking about all your stuff, your clients and all that.
Each one they're charging to each other.
But, I mean, it would be unfair if each one charges.
I'm just the devil's in the details.
Do you want me to bring back the contract?
I would like to know how I have no problem agreeing to hire him as a lobbyist with this, but I do want to make sure that we have the details. I mean, we're starting out and we're already, we have financial issues and we don't have our funding mechanism in place. And I think it's very important, but I also want to be prudent with people's money.
Well, now that we meet every 2 weeks, I can put together an agreement in the next 2 weeks to bring back to the April meeting. Chris, is there anything time sensitive? Oh, yeah.
I think there's a committee hearing, so if you want him, he has to have his contract this week. So if you want him to go to a committee hearing on behalf of IVHD, he has to have a contract. If not, you're waiting. So there's a committee hearing between now and the next meeting.
Yeah, I'm not aware. Yeah, that's the one.
happy with the contract.
You just void it. Yeah, you just want to read it. Every contract should have 15 pages.
But he could see that. So they are.
Yeah. I would say realistically, like, getting this contract to start with.
Agree.
Opt out or termination?
That's what she was saying, we can terminate.
No, it's not 30 days notice. It's either 10 or any time in terms of termination. It's either 10 days or any time. I just don't remember.
But this price is actually better than
I would say it's a pretty reasonable lobbyist cost for the lobbyists, and to be honest, it's either
Okay, I guess I will make the motion to go ahead and accept the term sheet subject to legal review and
you want to set a time annual?
With an annual, I would like to have it
Be 12 months?
be 12 months.
12 months with an option for renewal. Okay. And then do you want to leave it as is in terms of regular updates, or do you want specific direction for this lobbyist to come address the board, or to address the board through updates for Chris?
I would just, honestly, just build a relationship, you know what I mean? And if it's, you gotta come to a board meeting, and there's nothing left to do.
Right.
You're wasting everyone's time.
Right.
So I would just leave it as is.
Yeah, the current IC agreement says IVHD may terminate this agreement for convenience at any time upon written notice of the contract. It's 0 days.
Basically, I would assume that say this, if there's something to tell us, he'll tell us. Basically, he'll update us when it's further information. He'll update us.
It's like with any contract, right? I mean, you hold your feet to the fire. You have somebody that's, say a kind of marketing person or whatever the accountant or marketing, right? Turn it, So,
And I'm assuming that he's a good person to go with.
it's also we also represents scripts, San Diego.
And Katie introduced us to him in Sacramento to do our bid for SB 70 in Williams' office. I was very impressed.
They were doing a promotion for the board, or, I mean, the rest of them,
And his, I believe his mother and father were lawyers, at least his father was. And he inherited his father's business, therefore relationships as well. His what? Oh, he's not here. Well, the business side. The business side.
Yeah, it's pretty much like I have an emotion on the floor, I can have
You got your second
the
word.
tournament and all of that, so.
So I would motion by Goodson, by Chris, all in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? And then item D, authorize the loan amendment resolution 2020-5-03, first amendment to loan security agreement for South Hospital.
Okay, so, when I put this into the board packet, they were still reviewing our application and they wanted to get this in front of everybody as a sample, so when they did tell us that we did get the modification of the loan and we could easily sign, we got notification that we did get approved for the loan modification, so we can start paying back our loan until May of 2026. So even though this was just a sample, this is what we signed, you guys approved on the loan modification.
Oh, no, the real one in
There's a real one in there now?
Yeah, yeah, because we drafted and sent, so what you'll see behind Carly's staff report is resolution 2025-03, which we've drafted to be consistent with their template resolution.
And in the agreement sample.
Yeah, the agreement of. Right. So, yeah, so that's it. We have got the resolution, and the resolution ratifies the submission of the loan modification application under the loan program. And, yeah, it's good news. Good news, the loan modification.
Any questions?
increases, we can talk on there, but this is for our health insurance. We're proposing to change, right now we have Anthem Blue Cross, and we're proposing to change to Aetna. It was a savings about $700,000, not necessarily savings this year, but the other one was going to increase, so we're going to have a minimal increase in our health insurance year over year. There's a couple of other. We're going to do a small little increase of 3% on the premiums to the employees. I'm trying to find the page. So if you go to page 14, I'll show some of the. I don't know if you wanted to say anything, Chris, about the health insurance.
Yeah, with that, we staying with the same broker at this point in time. So that's going to make it a little easier with this transition. And then once we're all together, we'll put that out to bid again. But with that, this one that we did, we actually did a pretty good job on that, I think, because we made the recommendation is to make that adjustment from Blue Cross to Aetna, which is going to increase our network for our staff to be able to use, and it will also it lowers our increase is 1.9% by going with them, which is actually pretty good. The rest of them we actually do really well with. As far as the dental and vision is concerned, we're staying with the same group that we currently have, which worked out well for our team, and we're getting pretty good rates there. Making an adjustment from Aflac to Go as Alliance, which does our insurance for our life insurance and all those other things as well. So kind of putting those together, and it's going to be a 10% decrease in cost for us all the way around. We're able to do this and only do an increase to our staff of about 3%, which is actually really good. Normally that's much higher. So overall, we've actually done a pretty good job with this one as far as being able to have the coverage that we need and expand our coverage for our team and keep our costs down based off of the recommendations that are in front of you.
Chris, I have a question. I know in the past, El Centro Regional didn't have a contract with Aetna. Do they now have a contract with Aetna?
I don't know that for sure. I'd have to ask them and find out.
Okay, yeah, I would just like to make sure that, both facilities have, the employees can go to both facilities and not just one. Because I know in the past they were not a provider for Aetna.
Right, and this one increased. I would be surprised if they're not, because when we did the data dive on that, like our coverage, I believe it's in the package as well. It goes from 88% to like 94% or something like that by switching to Aetna.
Okay.
So I would be surprised if they're not, but we could double check that for sure.
Yeah.
I feel like they are. I had Aetna insurance last year. I got blood work, and then my son got.
And it was in network.
Yeah. Keep in mind, right now, what we have Anthem is not a network at Scripps.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right.
Now,
Yeah, and I know that a lot of doctors had lost their contracts for Aetna through El Centro Regional, so their Aetna patients had to go to PMH. But I don't know if they now, and they may have a contract now, they may have settled it. So,
yeah, I think Anthem is doing the same thing that most of them were doing with Aetna before, and so everybody takes their turn in that cycle as far as. We're not getting a good deal, so we're going to drop your insurance, and then they work out the process. Because Aetna went through that for a while, and now I think everybody has picked them up, and now Anthem's having that issue with everybody.
And I think Blue Shield is UCSD.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, that was just my question. But
And how much of a cost savings is it to the district? You said 700,000?
Well, it will be, if we stayed with Anthem, it would cost us over 700. So just changing, it's gonna be a short increase of a couple $100,000 instead.
There's 700,000 difference.
Yeah, it's a 1.9% increase.
Kind of maintain where we're at.
Yeah.
That's less of a hit.
Yes.
Yeah, page 3 will give you all that detail of the estimated spend now, projection, and the variance measure. It's at 1.4 increase with going with these recommendations.
I did see.
The one thing that we
I'm sorry.
The one thing that we don't know right now, which will end up coming back because they needed all the data from March to be included in that quarter, is our stop loss. But we're anticipating a 20% increase on the stop loss, which you'll see in there. And that's fairly normal based off of the fact that we're self-insured. But we won't have final numbers on the stop loss, which again doesn't affect the rest of this until probably the end of April, first part of May, and depending on how quickly they can get those quotes redone after they see all of our data.
In the insurance.
Yeah.
Questions on it?
I thought of you, Laura, when I was reviewing this earlier.
Me too. I was like, thinking on it, and I was like, insurance is never my thing.
My question is kind of the same one, I was just trying to make sure what benefits anybody lost for being by switching to this, they're actually gonna gain some, so. Okay.
I have a motion.
I would move that we authorize the, I don't know, because this is like the board presentation deck.
So,
I guess I would authorize the.
so
I second.
Okay, there
I
we
said,
go. Change the Aetna. All right.
Here, Mr. Chairman, this is our final call for passengers on flight 23 with EA service to San Luis. This time, that's the evening aboard to the Dumbarton here.
safe travels, brother.
Okay, so I moved and who seconded? James seconded?
second, I have a motion by Kitson, a second by Garcia. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. We go on to item F, IVHD procurement and purchasing policy.
Yes, so consistent with the direction of the board at the last board meeting, we prepared this purchasing and procurement policy. I'm going to go through the big picture, and this is really, actually, in terms of procurement policies, sort of bare bones because it's only got what's required by law, although there is some provisions in here that are best practices for stuff like professional services. But this includes bidding regulations governing the purchases of supplies and equipment, the procurement of professional services, and bidding for public works contracts, which public works contracts is generally construction of a public work. So this, the most helpful thing usually for boards is the chart in the back, Exhibit A. And it points you to, like, it's an easy little guide on the category and is bidding required by law or not. And so materials and supplies to be furnished, sold, or leased to the district involving an expenditure of more than $25,000. The general rule is that bidding is required by the Health and Safety Code. There's an emergency exception, which we've incorporated into the policy. Work involving an expenditure of more than $25,000, that's for construction of a public works. Bidding is required. There's an emergency exception, and then change orders that don't materially change the scope don't have to be brought back. So sometimes you'll have like $1 million project, and then you'll have a change order, and the change order is like $100,000. If the change order is less than 5% of the contract amount, you don't have to bring it back even if it's more than $25K. That's the basic of the change order for the 5% provision. Medical or surgical equipment or supplies, so bidding does not apply. So that includes only equipment or supplies commonly, necessarily, directly used by or under the direction of physicians. Electronic data processing and telecommunications goods and services, If the cost is less than or equal to 25K, no bidding is required, but if it's more than 25K, bidding through competitive means is directed by statute. And there's some language in there about that I'll direct your attention to. Professional services, so this is stuff like the lobbyist you just approved, which is technically more than 25, bidding is not required for that. This is stuff like architects, landscape architects, engineering, environmental land surveying, construction, management services. So bidding is not required by law, but there are some steps that we would follow according to the policy. And then energy conservation contracts, you can enter into those like solar and stuff. There's no bidding requirement, you just have a public hearing requirement. So walking through what the process is, just so you know about it. So when formal bidding is required with stuff like a big construction project or stuff that's the over 25K amount, you got to prepare a bid package. You've got to publish a notice inviting bids to the community. Sometimes you do it online. You just post it on a public forum like called Planet Bids, or there's a bunch of different public forums people can find out about them. Or you can direct them to people, like you can solicit them to companies that you know of. There's a bid form. Usually this is for, again, construction projects, presentation of bids, withdrawal of bids, opening of bids, adding or deducting items in construction contracts, determinations of responsive and responsible bidders. And then again, there's emergencies. So like if there's something, the last time I used emergency for a hospital district, like something, a sewer main broke in the basement of the hospital, which happened to be where they had their kitchen. And it was like, go, like do whatever you need to do. We're not bidding anything out. We need to fix that. There's a provision on GPOs, group purchasing organizations. And that is described in the tax code, and that's like bulk purchases of stuff. So you don't have to bid that. And then there's informal competitive purchasing procedures. And this would be the stuff that you would do for like professional services. So you would do the informal competitive procedures are by amount. So if it's more than $1 million, then you have to prepare a request for proposals, publish it, just like if it was like a big construction project. Publish it, solicit bids, notice inviting bids, scope, opportunity for people to bid, and then you declare what the basis of the, like what the standards are to win the contract, lowest price or best value, which is more typical best value. And that's what, way more formal. Contracts between 250,000 and $1 million. So those kind of mid-level contracts, you got to get 3 quotes from proposed vendors, and then decide who the best value is for among the. You can get more than 3, but this policy would say you got to get at least 3 quotes, and unless there's a sole source justification, which Chris would determine in his discretion as CEO. Like, it doesn't make any sense to get 3 vendors because, like, in some of our discussions that have happened at former board meetings, it's like, this is the only person who could provide this thing, so it makes no sense to get quotes. I'm just going to bring you the contract and then you sole source it, and that's fine. Contracts that are less than 250K can be awarded without soliciting bids or proposals from multiple vendors. So that's sort of the gist of it. This is meant to be just a guide for staff in terms of how to procure service contracts or construction contracts. There's language in here about prevailing wage and payment bonds and licenses requirements, because that's stuff you need to have in your procurement policy if you're going to do a construction project. That has to be in your policy, and you are required to have a procurement policy by law. And then we've got provisions here about flexibilities and waivers so that Chris, in his discretion, can make deviations if he determines it's in the best interest of the district in consultation with legal. He would just have to bring it back to you for like FYI. And then Chris would be the person signing the contracts. So that's the gist of the procurement policy.
It seems pretty standard. I mean,
Yeah, it's just amount, like some boards feel more comfortable with certain amounts. You know, some folks say, I want to bid out everything over 50K. Some people say, I want to bid out everything over 250 or a million. You know, it's just like, are these thresholds? These are, I think, pretty reasonable thresholds, but it's your district. You tell me.
And I think I mean, I've had, running for public agencies, you have this, right? Like,
Yeah.
when I was at IID, you wanted sole source, you know, you had to like fill out a whole sole source justification.
Right.
Anything over a certain amount had to bid out, you know, certain ways you had to bid was lowest price, some professional service, like construction would be, you know, hey, I want to go build, you know, a sidewalk, right? That's just lowest price, you know, they have standards for that. And then if you wanted to, you know, have services, like professional services, that comes out to best value.
Yeah.
You know,
And actually, this policy doesn't make any of the past decisions that you've made are not inconsistent actually with these policies, because the only contract that you've procured that's like over the 250K threshold is the BRG consultant agreement, and you did get multiple bids. We did get multiple bids. BRG was just we got two, but BRG was the best value determined by the board. But like some of these other contracts, like the progressive contract for consulting, you capped a lot of those at 50K, and you don't have to get bids for those. Like staff can decide who makes the most sense and interview people and find the best people and then just bring it to you. So it's not inconsistent with what you've been doing. It's just like putting it down on paper.
I make the motion to go ahead and approve the purchasing policy as presented.
I'll second.
I have a motion by Goodsell and a second by Garcia. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Now we'll move on to Chief Nursing Officer report. Urgent care update.
I just had a meeting with Dr. Tyson, and they're seeing about 20 patients a day. That was when we got back, so when I talked to them. They saw 350 patients last month, so their numbers are staying consistent. We also had a meeting about options for the future of the urgent care, especially in the South Building, and he was amenable to us doing a study, going over the many options on that. And I need to still talk to Chris about that, but the options were the best option for the system will be if the hospital was to go on the south side. Then we'll have to do an analysis on what it will cost to bring that to ASHPA level, the right level that it needs to be. But he was totally open, say, why don't you guys take over, put outpatient imaging, outpatient lab, and pharmacy, and he'd be totally open to that, which is great because most providers would want that, and he definitely is okay if we do that. So I'll be working with Chris on bringing back those options and also getting that a good idea of what it will cost to bring that building to that level should we take that option, but we'll also do other options. If somebody else takes it, what will that mean? And obviously looking at other options such as should we put a CT in there or should we put it at one of the clinics that already has ASHPA level clearance, same thing for imaging, etc. The only perk there is that if they're there, those 20 patients a day that is going to grow eventually will use the services that were closer to them. Since a lot of seniors here walk to wherever they go.
What is his hours?
Right now, I know they're closing. They're due to staffing and costs. I know that they're about 11, 12 hours. But I'll give you I don't have the exact, so I'll get that back to you. I'll just
Looking to see if I can find the hours right now.
I know he's been like, you know, trying to get patients in every week. Crazy hours.
They were able to deviate 3 ambulances to the ER, which I know doesn't seem like a lot, but it is a lot, especially down here. And there is a conversation that we have pending because we looked at this when Heffern was in existence, that we should talk to EMS about what constitutes you have to go to the ER and what can be seen here if the patient requests to be seen at the urgent care. Because when I used to run the emergency room, we knew that 65 to 70% of the visits could have been seen in urgent care or resident. And obviously that's a cost issue and a value issue and a time issue, and then less stress on the ambulances, which they obviously complain that many patients go ambulance, and that cost is significant. So hopefully when we get into the data analytics, we'll find out exactly which way everybody's going and what the real cost is.
The website says their hours are 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday.
CEO report, I would say, since the finances, what can say?
All right, so just piggybacking on what Tomas was talking about as well, I do have a conversation scheduled with REACH tomorrow at 10 o'clock, and part of that conversation I'm going to be talking to them about services in the Calexico area and what they might be able to do to help with that, because we know there's an issue down there. So I'll keep you guys posted on where that comes, because I know they're wanting a lot of our business and so forth, and so I'm going to try to see what we can do about having them do something down in that area as well. So that's one of the big ones. Also with that, probably at the next board meeting, we'll have a discussion about the urgent care there, with regards to the things that Tomas brought up and the south side of that clinic. So we'll be bringing some recommendations and stuff, possibly in a closed session as far as just the strategy is concerned and what the board wants to do there. But just plan on that on the next regular board meeting that we do in April, that's going to come up. From there, I just want to make you guys aware we do have a joint meeting with the ECRMC executive team this coming Monday. We're going to meet together for about 2 hours and kind of go over some of the strategy that we're going to use to bring everything together and start kind of this, forming some of those groups as far as who's going to be responsible for various different phases of kind of like our strategic planning for this process in particular. So we'll have more information for you guys at the next board meeting on that, because we should have a basic guideline of what that looks like. We were also told, and I'm going to steal a little bit of Adriana's thunder, but we were told in our meeting this last week that possibly by the end of this week, maybe the first part of next week, they should have a draft of the purchase agreement for us, so we can review that and go over it. So moving a little bit faster than the 2 months that they initially had said before, hopefully. So hopefully we'll have some good information on that coming up as well. Other than that, things are moving forward with our chows. The biggest issue, if you guys remember, one of the things I talked to you guys before at the last meeting, it's an issue, potential issue for us, which is the DEA license. John, our director of pharmacy, did a phenomenal job really working with DEA and the state and everybody else to make sure that we could get that license, because it expires on the 31st. And so they are going to allow us to continue that DEA license with the Pioneers one until everything gets changed over, so that's going to buy us a lot of time that we needed. And so, hats off to John, did a phenomenal job there, really sticking with them and working with them. That was one of our top 3 potential issues that we were worried about, and so now that's not as much of a worry. So he did a phenomenal job there. I just want to make you guys aware of that. And then outside of that, the rest of the stuff is coming along as well. Some of it is much slower than others, but we're grinding through that process, and in the process of doing that, we're also kind of putting things together to be able to say, or be able to bookmark some things that we're going to end up doing for ECRMC as well, so that we can have those things ready to go once the purchase agreement is in place, and we can start that process, so we're not behind the 8 ball like we were with the Pioneers one. So a lot of work going on back there. The team that's there right now has been phenomenal with that as well. You know, outside of all of our normal duties that we're all working on, everybody sitting there too is also managing all of this process. And it's a heavy lift and it's a big lift. And I mean, they're knocking it out. They're doing a phenomenal job. So we wanted to make sure that the board was aware of the great work that these guys are doing as well. And that's my report.
Thank you.
Also, real quick too, as a reminder,
Don't miss your plane, buddy.
Keep going.
okay, yeah. So also just as a reminder, I know it's kind of a little funky as far as how it's set up on the agenda, but I do want to remind you guys you do need to go over the finances and get those approved for the last 3 months.
Yeah, we've been trying.
We're 2 steps ahead of you,
Yeah.
Chris. Carly's been trying to go.
So the financials were actually approved on consent unanimously because they're included in the consent calendar, but Katie
Right.
discussed pulling them and discussing them during your CEO report here. So we'll punt it to Carly so she can do the finance report.
Have a safe trip. Bye. Okay. You guys want to go to the?
Sometimes it's really hard. It's like choppy what I hear from you guys. I'm not
Yeah.
sure. It's very hard to hear.
Thank you.
Okay, so you guys do have 3 months in there just because I'm used to the financials being approved, and the last couple ones they weren't approved, but I guess they were since they're in the consent calendar. So I'll just go over the February's, sorry, and January numbers. What I did want to point out, so we're going to go to this page is the clinics. So there's a couple different formats here. So this first one is going to have all of our clinics. It's our outpatient clinics and our rural clinics. So I have a total there, and then we have a breakdown. These are just estimates because our deductions from revenue, so you have your gross revenues, and then we don't actually have, you know, the complete collections on these yet. So you estimate what your deductions from revenue would be. You look at historically what you've been collecting for those, and then you look at the estimate. These, I'm confident will change. So even though I say Pioneers Health Center has a profit of $1 million, it really should be about 1.4. And why I say that is because if I look at prior year to compare it to this year, our collection per visit was more last year than this year. With the change of the EMR system, we're having a lot of denials that we're working right now, and so we should be able to get some of those back on there. And then also for RHCs, sometimes we don't get paid our full rate, so we have to do it's called a PPS recon. I'm going to call it like your tax return. They say how many visits, what we got paid, and they usually pay us money or we pay back. So if we aren't getting paid correctly by Medi-Cal or Medi-Cal Managed Care, at the end of the year, we'll do that reconciliation and then we'll get money back as well. There's some other things on here. We do know when we did professional billing is new to us as in-house. We used to do it with an outside vendor. There's still some CPT codes that aren't in the system being built. So these revenue on some of these departments will increase as those things are being finally built. It's taking sort of extremely long time to bring some of those in. And then there's also then the SNF that's in here. That's pretty self-explanatory. 1.5 million profit for the first 6 months on there. Now the rest of the ones that are on here is set up a little different. So the reason is because when I show you guys the net, those are manual, these are all manual stuff that we have to do. So but the other ones on the departments, this is just a report that we can run out of the system for you. So even though your first one for the intensive care unit is going to say, oh, we made $2.78 million in the ICU, that is not true. So I just want you guys to know when you see gross, that doesn't, we have to take into consideration deductions from revenue on there. I can give you some numbers, like on the inpatient side, Medi-Cal will pay us 23% of our charges. Blue Shield will pay us 57% of our charges. Outpatient, Medi-Cal's at 12%, which is actually better than it used to be 9. And then Blue Shield is about 40. And so it just depends on like the weighted average of these payers. So just so you guys can kind of see how they're doing in revenue versus budget and expense, I just wanted to show you the gross numbers so you can kind of see how everything's going. The supplies in each of the departments look higher than the budget because when we changed the new EMR system, we did change a little bit about how our expenses are being costed out. Before it would go mostly to one cost center, but now we are wanting to do more direct to each department, scanning the supplies so they actually get the true costs that are for that department, so it's easier to see how that department's doing. So you'll see that's why they're off a little bit on their budget for those departments. There are obviously other departments that aren't in here. I just gave you guys the revenue and expense ones. There's obviously ones that have no revenue. I do not include those in here for your review. Like I told you, we got approved for the loan. I don't think there's anything else I wanted to update. So let's see, we do have, I know that it was requested that I would do an estimate for Soul Hospital, if we were a Soul Hospital on there. I talked to our cost report preparer, and he said there's really no easy way to estimate that based, if you did it at one a few years ago, and he said we could kind of take that now. So maybe add $221,000 onto the bottom line for ours per month. So that's just easier just to say 221. It obviously fluctuates with the census. So actually our census now is better than it was then. So we may be able to get a little bit more. But do you guys have any questions? I do have a question for you, or actually, hopefully, so our budget is, we're starting our budget next month. And we would need the budget approved by you guys in June because obviously July 1st is our first school year. And I know we have a meeting on June 12th. Is it okay to bring you the finalized budget packet on June 12th for you guys to have 2 weeks to review, and then it'll be on the agenda at that last June board meeting for approval?
You do like a budget presentation the end of May, and then like pretty much like go through it, and then any adjustments, and then to approve it by then. To do like a budget workshop where it kind of like goes through.
With you guys, I can. We may still have some changes to do, but we could do something towards the end.
That would be May 22. A May 22 board meeting, so like a budget workshop or a budget presentation, and then you'd have June 12 to bring back changes or adjustments, and then approval on June 26.
Oh yeah, I won't be. We're at a conference.
May 22.
Yeah.
I mean, I just want like a whole budget presentation that like goes through like every department's budget. You know.
Can we do it after then?
And
We
then,
can do it on the 12th right now.
May
yeah, I mean, you can do it
It
on,
won't be done.
they won't be ready.
It'll be pushing it from May 22nd, to be honest. We have a brand new system this year.
Yeah, I mean, as long as it's, yeah, I mean,
Well, you
that
were,
way it's like, you know, I'm saying like a whole presentation, like a meeting just, I mean, it's gonna be lengthy, and then.
Do you want like the whole board or like a committee? That
No,
You could do a special meeting that's just a budget workshop, one item on the agenda. That's not unusual. And you could do that when is the conference?
May 20, what is it? 22nd. Whatever that Tuesday through Friday.
Okay, because you could do it, you could do it,
You can even
Like-
do it like in first week of June.
yeah, June 5th or whatever you want, but.
I mean, we can,
Or if, I think
I'm going
Carly.
on a cruise on the 17th of June, so let's have it.
Well, the 12th, if the budget workshop is on the 12th, that would be on a regular board meeting date at Pioneers, and you could do the budget presentation on June 12th, and then give feedback that could be incorporated and brought back in the revised budget for approval on June 26th, if you're comfortable with that.
I'm just trying to make it where it's not, like,
Last minute.
you're not stressing
Right.
to have us approve it. You know what I mean? Like running up against it, because I've run into situations where we've had to extend because our budget's not ready. You got to pass a resolution to keep going.
So we've never had that happen before. It would be easier for me to have to present in June. We've never actually presented department by department before. Because anytime earlier in May would be more difficult to get you guys the solid numbers. So it'd be easier if we have more time to get you solid numbers, and then we could change whatever little changes you guys would want after
so would you, June 12th work for you?
that. I'm here.
And it works for your cruise?
And if there's something that's like, you want to talk about in more depth, or an issue with the budget, then you've got between June 12th and June 26th to have a special board meeting and hammer other
And
stuff
if I
out
think-
in those 2 weeks.
Yeah, if I think there's any issue, obviously, we'll bring it up at the board meeting beforehand. I'll be updating Chris when we go through it. Present.
So we'll just plan for presentation on June 12th and approval on June 26th.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Is there a way, like, you could see department-wise, like, I know it goes against the budget, but like, it would be nice to be able to see, like, if it's profitable, or if it, you know, like, if it lost money, or if it made money. You know, because it's really just comparing the budget, and so it's like, okay, well, that's what's budgeted, right? But is it making money or is it losing money?
You can, that's when I was explaining, it's a manual process. You have to go through each one and we could do it, it would just take.
Is there something we can build into your software that can do that for you automatically?
No.
Right, because it's, I mean, it's like, when it's going against the budget, right, it's kind of like, okay, you're going up against a number that you thought it was going to be, right? Or you budgeted it for it. You're not really seeing, okay, which departments are making money, which are losing money.
Or when you
You
compare to
know?
last year, like, well.
Yeah, it's
okay.
like, was last year a good month?
Yeah.
You know, and then, you know, I mean, it doesn't really show, like, the whole picture of what's
Right.
actually happening, right?
Yeah.
Well,
So-
even if you look at like the clinics, so I did that with the clinics ones, and even though you can see losses on some of them, that doesn't show you the full picture because it doesn't take into consideration any of those referrals that are coming over to the lab or radiology to the hospital. So if we didn't have one of those clinics, we would also lose revenue on other areas of the hospital because it doesn't go directly to that clinic. And we are trying to figure out a report to run in the new system that will let us know where those referrals are going or coming. We just haven't
That's
been
the
able to
question I was going to ask, how do we track these patients? Because I was noticing that like our surgeries are less so far. And so we have 3 surgeons, right?
Correct.
3 general surgeons, one's part-time, the other 2 are full-time. And our surgeries are lower, and I'm like, where are these surgeries going to? You know, so is there any way we can track patients for their data, like where they ended up? Like, if you saw a patient in the clinic, and then they referred them out, or they referred them where? You know, depending on the provider who they're referring them to, like your primary cares and your nurse practitioners, and things in your RFC, that was always a question. Because I worked for Dr. Ramon Rodriguez, and he had his special doctors he referred to, regardless if they were in his group or not. So I just want to make sure that the providers, are, utilizing our services if they
We
need
did-
to,
we did,
depending on our resources.
I've been working with IT and I think we figured it out, so I'll be able to share that in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, like the labs. the
I'll try to put that on my
deliveries.
operational.
Yeah.
I think we figured it out, and if not, I'll let you know what.
Yeah, and I, and I do understand that the clinics are in the red, but it doesn't take into consideration the outpatient services that they provide and the surgeries and things like that. So you kind of have to like run all those patients and see how much you really need that clinic from, like the OB clinics. They look like they're losing, but actually you have the money in the deliveries and the OB checks and the ultrasounds and the labs and things like that. So you have to take that into consideration when you're looking at those clinics. It's just like, because if you just look at the clinic, you're like, oh my gosh, it should be closed. But really and truthfully, they're utilizing our outpatient services. So you kind of have to look at that. But it would be better if we had a little bit better picture.
Do we ever talk to like local primary care providers as to, and get a feel for who they refer their patients to? Do they refer them to the hospital, or do they refer them to UCSD directly, and things of that nature?
We can see how many are coming in from the outside providers, and we do get quite a bit. I'll run those numbers as well.
I thought too, like an outreach for us as a district, maybe talking to the primary caretakers and letting them know all the services, reminding them all the services that we are able to provide their clients, and rather than instinctively referring them out to other people, maybe give us a try.
Yeah, that's another reason why we're looking at the reports, so that we can go and thank the providers that are referring to us, and then we're creating a pamphlet about what our needs are and what our, kind of our expectations are, to make sure that when they send that referral and they're attaching the data, that we need to make sure that we
process that referral timely instead of having to send things back. So we'll be going out to all the offices and stuff like that.
Because I know that on the call center, it's a big issue. Most of the providers, they are referring out to other areas because they can't get their patients scheduled. So that's a big thing. More than one doctor said that to me. So that call center.
And just an observation, because we have looked at this before, it'd be nice to know if the patient went out because they wanted to be sent out versus the provider
Yeah,
send them out.
patient choice. Yeah, exactly.
So I'll work on the net, the net by department for fiscal year to date, March, for the last second single meeting.
I just want to say thank you again. I got it in time where I could actually look on it, digest it, and I appreciate you running through it, but I definitely appreciate being able to look at it in my peace and quiet, like it doesn't there.
Thank you.
Yes, we had our first sort of all hands working, so we did get a signed term sheet from El Centro last Wednesday, and on Friday we had an all hands working Zoom with folks from City of El Centro and ECRMC to get those working groups Chris mentioned sort of set up. And Chris mentioned the meeting Monday, there's going to be subsets meeting throughout the next couple of weeks. So everyone's diving into the diligence and really excited to get working. Our small ad hoc group is going to review the joint powers agreement with UCSD and start discussing that with UCSD. So everything is moving forward well with the diligence and the discussions. And as Chris mentioned, they said they would get a draft of the ATA to the city and ECRC this week. So hopefully they did that. So we should expect to see it hopefully next week, unless there's issues or questions. And I also just really wanted to compliment staff on the great work that they're doing in getting, for example, as Chris mentioned, the DEA registration and other licensing stuff for the skilled nursing facilities, for the clinics. There's a lot of moving parts, and everyone's jumping on Zooms multiple times a week to figure out what needs to get done and who folks need to talk to get stuff approved. And it's been really collaborative and awesome to see. So I'm Carly and both Carlys and everybody's doing a great job. There's a ton of stuff going on, and it's keeping everyone really good. So that's all I have for today.
Do we have any items for the future agenda?
I just want to remind the board, before we head into closed session, that if there is a situation you're presented with, because this is supposed to sunset in January, but if there's a situation you're presented with where you have a last minute emergency and you have to like care for a parent or care for your child or whatever, you have the option of appearing remotely over Zoom. We just have to, the Zoom is already noticed in a way that's compliant with 82449. You really just have to fill out a request to appear remotely, and we've always got a placeholder on our agenda for that. And I have this really handy form that is literally like, you just check this box, like what's the basis, this one, what's the basis, this one, what's the meeting, this one, what's your name, this one, and then we just attach it to the minutes, and it's really simple, and I can fill it out for you. So just a reminder, in case you get hit with something at the last minute, but you still want to appear at the board meeting, you can fully participate, vote, everything.
Oh, you vote?
Yeah, vote, everything. So there's a few bases, and it's like child care or caregiving for a spouse, domestic partner, parent, grandparent, agency travel. So if you have to travel for like another agency that you're part of, if you're sick, you feel sick, like you've got a contagious disease and you don't want to contaminate the rest of the board. Or if there's an emergency circumstance, so it's like a car accident example, or something, like if there's something where you're like, this is an emergency and I have to deal with it, and
You get a flat tire.
yeah, and you're like, I just want to call in and hear what happened on the budget, or whatever. So we've got our placeholders.
If you're on the cruise.
Oh, but if you feel sick, we're not sick. Unfortunately, cruises are not. No.
Aren't you caring for somebody on that cruise?
Yeah, for herself. That's what she's calling for herself.
Self-care don't count.
You don't get phone service when you're on cruise.
That's true.
You can get internet service. It's not great.
That's all.
Awesome. Okay, with that, we'll move into closed session.
Just one quick thing, March 30th is Doctor's Day, so I just wanted to point that out. They will be celebrating for the medical staff, will be making some announcements. I already saw some stuff like in the hallways, thanking them, and then they'll have some goodies for them. So that'll show, if you come across a physician and you want to say thank you for what they do for our community, so I'm sure they'll appreciate that.
The report so that you have it right for the minutes.
Okay, thank you.
And then there's no one. Okay, so the board took the following reportable actions in the closed session. For the board took action to reject both government claims, Robledo and Castro. The motion was made by Director Goodsell, seconded by Director Garcia, and the vote was unanimous. All right.
With that, I'll close this meeting at 7:54 p.m.
Before 8.